KHTS. It is that time of year again. It is obviously outside. It's raining. It's cold. It's close to winter. Now, we have had this guest on before. She is from Prima Pediatrics. We have Dr. Shelley Feldman. Doctor, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And you can go to primapediatrics.net or give them a call, 424-9000, over there on Via Princesa, right across from Costco and 24-Hour Fitness, that shopping center over there. Is that a shopping center? Is that considered a shopping center?
I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of
area.
An area.
Yeah. Anyway. That
mini mall. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, anyway. It's over there. It's on Via Princesa. Again, find out more information at primapediatrics.net. Dr. Feldman, you've been in pediatrics how long now?
Do I have to say? Yeah. About
at least
38 years.
38 years. So
actually, 39.
You've done this a few times.
Just a few.
Just a few times. Okay. And we want to talk today. With the weather changing and stuff, it's, you got to worry about your kids, right? You should worry about even when the weather's not changing.
You always worry about the kids.
But what I wanted to ask you, what are the top 3 things? I mean, there's obviously a lot more things that you need to do, but what are some of the things that I want to know? The top 3 things you do, or you would suggest to keep your toddler healthy.
Okay. There are 3 categories.
Yeah, I know this is not going to be just a simple, here, it's this, this, and this. And then
it kind of is this, and this.
Okay.
In a large sense. Immunize.
Okay.
Number 2, feed them right.
That's a big one.
Number 3, make sure they get enough rest and exercise.
Okay, let's go through those then.
Okay.
1, immunize. What do people need to do?
They need to immunize their children. The good news is that recently, in fact, this past week, the CDC announced that there has been an uptick in immunization rates across the United States. And there has been an uptick in immunization rates in LA County, believe it or not.
All right.
Okay, now, that doesn't mean Santa Clarita follows the trend.
Oh, okay.
But they do a little bit. The real issue here is that people have to understand that Jenny McCarthy knows how to act and sing and dance. She doesn't know medicine. She doesn't know science. So don't pay attention to her.
That's a fair point.
There is an ongoing whooping cough epidemic. Last year, we had 22 cases of pertussis in our practice alone.
And okay, so for 22 cases, you see a lot of kids. So for me, that doesn't seem 22. Is that a lot? What are some of the
Well, let me
past
put it
years?
to you this way: the national rate for the incidence of whooping cough, which is also known as pertussis, in the United States last year was higher than any year since 1951.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a huge amount.
Yeah.
Out of the 22 kids that we saw with documented whooping cough, in other words, we grew the stuff, so we know it was there. Out of those 22 kids in our practice alone, 5 of them were hospitalized.
You're making my chest hurt, Doc.
Yeah. One of them, thank God we did not have any that died.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But there were plenty of kids last year that died from whooping cough.
Yeah.
So if you think it's a thing of the past, it is not. It's a thing of the very, very present. My parents got me a whooping cough shot. For gosh sake, that was in the 1950s.
And is that one of those immunizations where it is you have to get it every so often, or is it just like a one-time deal?
No, it's a initial series of 3 in infancy, 2, 4, and 6 months. Again, a booster at 18 months, another booster at 5 years, and then boosters every 5 to 10 years thereafter. Used to be, in the era of whole cell vaccine, which is the kind that I got as a kid, you could go every 7 to 10 years. But since we modified the vaccine to have it acellular, which means a lot fewer kids with febrile seizures, a lot fewer kids with high fever and screaming afterwards.
Yeah.
It's a good thing,
yeah,
but it also doesn't last as long.
Gotcha.
So now it's every 5 to 7 years
Gotcha.
rather than 10 years.
And when you say immunizations, do you mean the flu shot? You mean all those things?
I mean, the flu shot is particular to winter, which I believe will be our next upcoming topic. So we'll talk about that later. But that immunization. Another example, Hib and pneumococcal. Those are both against meningitis and ear infections. We have an increasing incidence now of ear infections because people aren't immunizing.
Weird.
Keep in mind, by the way, that even if you believed that autism was caused by the MMR vaccine, which it wasn't. Now, this is a direct paraphrase of a Penn and Teller sketch.
Okay.
They don't get MMR until a year. What happened to all the first immunizations? Shots don't hurt babies. Not getting shots hurt babies.
Okay.
Okay? Plain and simple. They may cry. You cannot imagine how much you'll cry if you lose them because you didn't immunize them.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it.
So please immunize your children. The immunizations are well tested. It isn't approved by the FDA here until it has been tested and used routinely in Europe and Asia for 10 to 20 years beforehand.
Gotcha.
Okay? Do it, guys. So that's enough.
Okay. Step 2, you said eat right.
Eat right. Okay. That means, obviously, in the first 6 months, your kid is going to either have formula or breast milk, preferentially breast milk. But if, for example, you had a breast augmentation before you got pregnant, you may not be able to nurse your baby completely. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
Yeah.
But it does mean that you may end up having to supplement, and you have to accept that. That's a trade-off.
And that's not bad. It's not
No.
the worst thing ever, certainly.
Let me put it to you this way. Is breast milk the best food for a baby, a young baby? Of course it is. Why? Because it contains all the immunologic things, the things that will enable them to fight off illnesses until such time as the vaccines can take effect. Because whatever immunity you have, you give them through your breast milk. Is it nutritionally good? Yes. In general, it is nutritionally good. Is it 100%? No, it's not 100%. Breastfed babies need vitamin D.
Yeah.
Because the vitamin D that's in breast milk is significantly less in quantity than it even is in formula, although it is more bioavailable. But either way, you still have to supplement, especially in the winter.
Gotcha.
Summer, if you take the baby outside, you're pretty much okay, but you got to be careful. So it's not a complete food, but it is probably a best choice food. It's also a lot more convenient. I mean, a lot of people don't think so.
That's true. That's true. I have 2 kids, and it is way more convenient to breastfeed than it is.
It's less expensive. It
Oh my
costs
gosh.
for formula. It doesn't cost for breast milk.
It is. Formula does get really expensive.
Formula is very expensive, and you have a lot less incidence of allergy and allergic reactions in babies who are breastfed. So put it together, it's less expensive, it's more convenient. The one extra thing that mothers forget about is there's one beauty about breastfeeding you'll never get
Oh, yeah.
with a formula, and that is when the baby latches on, your body releases oxytocin.
Yeah.
Okay, oxytocin is the letdown so that the milk comes down into the ducts and gets to the nipple. The other thing it is a smooth muscle relaxant. Who needs a Valium? All you need is breast milk. You sit down to nurse that baby, especially if you've been working and you come home in the evening, you put the baby on the breast, and oh my God, phenomenal. Have your glass of water, sit back, and have a nice
relaxing.
little relaxation.
Yeah.
Better than a massage. Some people say it's better than the other stuff too, but we won't talk about that.
Easy there. Okay, so that's babies. What about toddlers?
Now, once your kid hits 6 months nutritionally, they have to get solids. They have to get a supplemental feeding of some kind. The amount that's available in formula and or in breast milk is not sufficient at that point. They have to start eating. You can start them now. The way you feed your kid is completely unscientific. There is no science at all that's been done to determine which are the best foods to start kids on in terms of solids. Nobody knows, okay? So the reality is we could probably feed them albondiga soup first, and it would be fine. But nobody knows.
Yeah.
So the standard way to do it, based on our suppositions, is you start with cereal, because It's the least complex of the complex carbohydrates.
Yeah.
The easily digested. It's mush. Makes sense. And then you add in fruits. Some people say vegetables first, but they used to do fruits first because there were fewer complex sugars in the fruits than there were in the vegetables.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is probably doesn't make a dang bit of difference. Like some people say you should start with vegetables because then they don't get used to the sweet taste. Of course, those are the people that never tasted breast milk, which is incredibly sweet. Okay, but nonetheless, fruits or vegetables. And then eventually by 9 months, you've added in proteins. Now, in the old days, we used to say no eggs, no chocolate,
Yeah.
no nuts, and no citrus before a year of age because we thought it would make the kids allergic. Guess what? We were wrong.
Oh.
Sorry about that, folks. The truth is, you can feed them all of that stuff.
What about honey? I know honey was in the mix there.
Honey
with botulism
doesn't
and
go
stuff.
in. Yeah, but honey's for a different reason, and honey still stays.
Okay.
But the rest of them have gone with the wind because, as it turns out, the earlier you introduce allergenic foods, the less likely you are to have an allergic baby.
Look at that.
So who knew?
Yeah. All right. So this is what we need to do. I got to pay some bills. I'm going to take
Yeah.
a quick break, and then we'll finish more with nutrition. We're going to do some more nutrition for
And
toddlers,
then we're going to go for exercise.
and then we're going to go exercise and sleep. Well,
Yes.
no, we're not going to sleep, but forget it. We're just going to take a break. Okay. This is Dr. Shelley Feldman from Prima Pediatrics. Go to primapediatrics.net for more information. We're talking about the top 3 things to keep your toddler and baby healthy, and we'll talk more about that after the break.
The magic.
AM 1220 KHTS, your hometown station. I am Kyle Jennings here with Dr. Shelley Feldman from Prima Pediatrics, and we're talking about the top 3 things to keep your toddler and baby healthy. We went through immunizations.
Yes.
And we've gone partway through nutrition, and we'll get to more in a second. But you can go to primapediatrics.net. You can also call 424-9000 for more information about Prima Pediatrics. So let's go back into nutrition. We went through babies, a little bit early age toddlers, and so we want to expand on that. Let's get some more toddler information for
Now,
keeping your kids healthy.
For toddlers, once they have teeth, they can pretty much eat most things. But the important thing to avoid for toddlers are things that are going to choke them.
Okay.
Because they still have small mouths and small openings in the back. So things like popcorn, carrots, hard carrots, not soft carrots. Peanuts. Those are not good for toddlers. They'll choke on them.
So it's a choking hazard, not necessarily a nutrition hazard.
It's not
as
a
it were.
nutrition hazard. It is a choking hazard.
Okay.
Now let's talk about nutrition because you wouldn't believe the number of overweight and even occasionally obese toddlers I see now, which is really horrifying. Don't overfeed your kids. Toddlers seem like they eat nothing. They eat nothing all day long. Nothing. They won't touch it. They take one bite and they're away from the table. That's it. They're done. And you're certain they're going to starve. And yet, they grow.
Yeah.
How is it that
I'm going through that right
happens?
now. I have to twist my son's arm. He's 4.
Yeah.
gonna
Well,
twist his arm.
don't twist them. Don't twist your kid's arm at all. Unless the physician has told you, your pediatrician has told you, your kid is underweight and needs more calories. But even then, you have to do it in a way that doesn't twist the kid's arm.
Gotcha.
The last thing you want to do is to get into food fights. Don't do that, okay? Not a good idea, because all you need to do is turn your dinner table, your lunch table, whatever it is, into a boxing ring, so to speak, and that child will be turned off from food for forever. And they'll either then overeat later, or they will undereat purposely, and you'll give them food issues for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
Let them
Avoid
graze.
that. Okay.
The normal toddler doesn't eat a big meal 3 times a day. The normal toddler eats small meals throughout the day. He'll have a little bit of breakfast. She'll have a little snack mid-morning. They'll have a little lunch. Then they'll have a little mid-afternoon snack. Then they'll have a little supper. And if you let them stay up late enough, they might want a little something before bedtime. Probably not the best idea to feed them anything before bedtime, but a nice warm glass of milk is a great idea. Don't forget the milk. Now, I will tell you.
It's a lot of stuff about milk, let me tell you, that
Oh,
I've
yeah.
read about not doing milk, and then there's people that say do milk. And
Here's the issue. Milk, theoretically, could have a lot of hormones in it because of what cows are fed, theoretically. The amount that's in our current milk supplies is negligible and probably is not sufficient to cause any issues. It's more of what's in the meat, because what's absorbed into the muscle of the cow is significantly greater than what's finally passed through the milk. So there's very little in the milk that you really have to worry about. The real thing is that not enough toddlers are getting enough milk. And that problem causes vitamin D deficiency. And we have a huge problem with vitamin D deficiency. So your toddler should get at least 16 ounces of milk or milk equivalent. So you got to watch it. If, for example, you don't want to give them cow's milk and you want to give them goat's milk, that's fine, but then they need vitamin B12 supplementation because goat's milk is vitamin B12 deficient.
Gotcha.
You want to give them rice milk, you got to watch it because you got to look at how much protein there is, because some of the rice milks don't have an adequate amount of protein. And you got to look to see if it's vitamin D and calcium fortified. If it's not, you got to find something else. Soy milk is a good choice. But a lot of kids who are cow's milk protein intolerant will also be soy protein intolerant. But soys are not a bad choice at all for the bulk of people. The only issue that really does happen is lactose intolerance. It's not common until about age 3 to 4, but it can happen. 70% of the world's population are lactose intolerant as adults. We're not supposed to have milk as adults.
Huh.
We're not supposed to do that. The only people who are not lactose intolerant as adults are the people in the Scandinavian countries in Northern Europe. Those are the only ones.
Really?
Everybody else is lactase deficient as an adult.
Look at that.
To a various degree. Some people can't even touch milk as an adult and have trouble with
I got to stay away from it. I got to stay away from it. But I love ice cream so much. It's like it's an internal struggle.
So have soy ice cream.
Oh, that's not the same. I feel like that's cheating. I feel like anyway.
It is. But that's beside the point.
Okay, so and you said they eat, several meals a day, several small meals a day. The goal is to make sure that those little snacks in between are healthy snacks, right?
In other words, I don't want to see any of your kids eating chips and cookies and cake and candy all the time. Now, does that mean you can never give them a cookie? Of course not. Here's the issue. This is the way you need to establish it. From the age of 1 to 2 forward, they get 1 day a week when they can eat junk food, okay? And that means things like drive-through McDonald's, okay? 1 day a week is junk food day. They can choose the day. Most of the time, my kids always chose Saturday.
Good choice.
But if they had a birthday party on Sunday and they wanted to have cake and ice cream, then they had to choose Sunday and they had to eat healthy on Saturday. And healthy means no junk food. And that means get it out of your house. And don't eat it in front of them. If you are going to eat it, your better choice is don't eat it yourself.
That's true.
Because, listen, you got a toddler around. If you continue to eat stupidly, excuse me, if you continue to eat stupidly and put junk food in your own face, you may not be around to see your kid grow up. So do your whole family a favor and get it out of the house, put it into one cupboard, lock it up, and only let it out 1 day a week.
There you go.
For everybody.
That's a good choice. All right, let's shift over now to the third thing, and that is rest and exercise.
Yes, the two polar opposites.
Which is weird. This is a weird thing. We've talked about this before, but in terms of sleep, how much sleep should kids be getting on a regular basis?
Of course,
let's go toddlers,
variable.
since we're talking about toddlers.
Okay, well, let's start with babies. Babies initially sleep 20 out of 24 hours in the first month.
Yeah.
By the time
living the
they're
dream, as it were.
3 to 4 months old, they're usually taking a 12-hour night and maybe a couple of 2-hour naps. By the time they're a year old, they're usually doing a 2-hour afternoon nap and a 12-hour night. And the 12-hour night sticks around. This is a warning to those of you who have kids who are old, who are school age and older. Do not, under any set of circumstances, allow homework to override sleep. If your kid is staying up late because they have so much homework, except for an occasional time like before a test or something, once every few weeks is no big deal. But if this is what's going on, then you need to turn off the lights and at a certain hour put them to bed and tell them, I will write a note to your teacher the following day. And if it's continuing, ongoing basis, you need to talk to your kids' teachers. Either your kid is having too much trouble and the other kids are doing fine, or the teacher's giving too much homework. And a lot of times teachers don't know. I mean, they try their best. But sometimes they don't realize that they're giving homework and another class is giving homework and something else is going on. So they're not going to know unless you give them feedback.
Yeah.
So you need to give them feedback. So you make your kid get rest.
That's a big thing.
The most important thing. Second most important thing, or even equally important, is exercise. These days, kids, they're doing away with recess a lot of the time. That's ridiculous. All the way up through 7th grade, those kids need to have at least 2 15-minute breaks where they're outside running around like a bunch of nuts. They got to. They have to have that. One way to determine if your kid's getting enough exercise is if when they get home from school by 3 o'clock, say, or 4, between 3 and 4, you put on a pedometer in the first thing in the morning, and if by 3 to 4 they haven't walked 10,000 steps, then out they go and they walk 10,000 steps. The normal children, not average children, normal children, walk at least 10,000 steps a day. If your kid's not doing that, it doesn't mean they're below average. It just means they're not exercising enough.
And that will keep them healthy.
That is usually sufficient to keep them healthy.
Yeah.
The other thing you should know is that if kids are involved in sports, and that's a great thing for them.
Yes.
But make sure they're not standing around doing nothing for the bulk of the time. They got to actually be exercising.
Gotcha.
Make sure you're not overemphasizing. Make sure the coaches know what they're doing, because a lot of coaches have no concept of child physiology, and they think they can run these kids into the ground, and they can't. So you got to be careful with that. And teach your kids safety. Those are the important things. But this child needs exercise. Why? Because if they exercise sufficiently during the day, they will sleep well at night.
And use that as a tool, because this is a generational thing, right?
Yes.
You need to exercise, be a good example to your kids and all that stuff as
100%.
well.
If you don't do it, your kid's not going to do it.
Exactly.
I have seen that over and over again, even amongst my closest friends. I have a couple of friends who have always been overweight and never exercised. Their kids are twice their size, and they're young adults now, and they're suffering the effects. You can't emphasize this enough.
Dr. Shelley Feldman with Prima Pediatrics giving us the top 3 things to keep your toddler and children really healthy. You can find out more information by going to primapediatrics.net. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk more. More with Dr. Shelley Feldman from Prima Pediatrics on AM 1220 KHTS.